Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to go my review of Summerslam 2004. Starting off the evening, we're going to go to our first match of the night. It is the Dudley Boys and Spike Dudley versus Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, and Paul London. Number one, I thought this was a good opening matchup for SummerSlam 2004. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Mysterio, Kidman, and London keeping the pace of the match. Devon hits a devastating power slam on Paul London in the middle of the ring. London then gets up, hits a step-up enziguri on Bubba Ray. Rey Mysterio then hits a springboard leg drop on Spike Dudley. Ray then hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope on Spike as well. Ray then hits a 619 on Spike Dudley. Kidman then gets involved in the match, hits a shooting star press on Spike Dudley for a near fall. Dudley's then hit a 3D on Kidman. Spike then goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Dudley Boys and Spike Dudley. Hats off to the Dudley Boys and Spike Dudley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Kane versus Matt Hardy. I thought it was an okay match. Back and forth matchup between Kane and Matt Hardy, with Matt keeping the pace of the match. Matt hits a twist of fate on Kane on the outside. Lita then grabs the ring bell. Matt then hits Kane with the ring bell with the referee not seeing it. Kane then gets up, hits a choke slam off the middle rope on Matt Hardy. Pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Kane. Hats off to Kane for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is John Cena versus Booker T. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between Cena and Booker T, with Cena keeping the pace of the match. Booker then hits a spin kick on John Cena in the middle of the ring, but John gets up, hits an FU on Booker T, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is John Cena. Hats off to John Cena for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is a triple threat match for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It is Edge versus Batista versus Chris Jericho. Number one, I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Edge, Batista, and Jericho, with Jericho keeping the pace of the match. Jericho then applies a wall to Jericho on Edge, but Batista breaks the hold. Edge then hits his spear on Jericho, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, still Intercontinental Champion, is Edge. Hats off to Edge for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle. Number one, I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Eddie and Kurt Angle, with Eddie keeping the pace of the match. Eddie applies an ankle lock on Kurt, but Kurt breaks the hold. Kurt then hits an ankle slam on Eddie. Kurt then applies another ankle lock on Eddie, but Eddie breaks the hold. Kurt then is working on the injured leg of Eddie Guerrero. Eddie then hits an ankle slam of his own on Kurt. Eddie then hits a 3 Amigos in the middle of the ring on Kurt. Kurt then goes for an ankle slam, but Eddie counters it with a DDT. Kurt then gets up, hits an ankle slam on Guerrero for a near fall. Kurt then applies an ankle lock, but Eddie throws the ref into Kurt Angle. Eddie then hit Kurt with his boot. Eddie then hits a frog splash off the top rope on Kurt Angle for a near fall. But Kurt gets up, applies another ankle lock on Eddie Guerrero, and your winner of the match by submission is Kurt Angle. Hats off to Kurt Angle for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Eugene versus Triple H. I thought it was an okay match. Back and forth matchup between Eugene and Triple H, with Triple H keeping the pace of the match. Triple H and Eugene both exchange in the middle of the ring. Eugene ends up hitting a stunner on Triple H. Ric Flair makes his way down to the ring, tries to cause a distraction. Eugene then hits a leg drop on Triple H for a near fall. Eugene then hits a pedigree on Triple H for a near fall as well. William Regal makes his way down to the ring as well. William Regal then attacks Ric Flair, but Triple H capitalizes on the distraction, hits a pedigree on Eugene, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Triple H. Hats off to Triple H for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE Championship. It is Undertaker versus JBL. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Taker and JBL, with Taker keeping the pace of the match. Taker hits an old school on JBL. JBL then gets up, hits Undertaker with a chair shot. Undertaker then hits a leg drop on JBL off the apron. Looked absolutely brutal. Undertaker then gets up, hits a choke slam on JBL for a near fall. JBL then gets up, hits a clothesline from hell on The Undertaker for a near fall. JBL then hits Undertaker with the championship. Undertaker gets up, hits a last ride on JBL for a near fall. Undertaker then hits JBL with the title. Referee ends up seeing this, and your winner of the match by disqualification. And at that time, still, WWE Champion is JBL. Hats off to JBL for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of SummerSlam 2004. It is Randy Orton versus Chris Benoit for the Heavyweight Championship. I thought this was a really great match. Back and forth matchup between Orton and Benoit, with Orton keeping the pace of the match. Orton ultimately hits an RKO on Benoit, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Heavyweight Champion is Randy Orton. A couple of things I'm going to say about SummerSlam 2004, man, before I get out of here. Number one, this was not the best SummerSlam I've ever seen. Not by a long shot, but it definitely wasn't the worst. There's a lot of really good matches on here. The opening matchup with the Dudley Boys and Spike Dudley versus Mysterio, Kidman, and London was a really good matchup. Kane versus Matt Hardy was a decent matchup as well. The triple threat match between Edge, Batista, and Chris Jericho was good. But to me, honestly, man, besides Orton versus Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship, the match of the night for me on this card was definitely Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle. The way they were booking this matchup and the storyline leading up to this match was a rematch, I believe, from WrestleMania 20, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a great match in itself. Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania was absolutely phenomenal. This was kind of a rematch from that match, and honestly, it was not lackluster by any stretch of the means, man. Kurt Angle, absolute legend. Guerrero, absolute legend. Rest in peace to Eddie Guerrero. But all in all, man, this wasn't that great of an event. In my honest opinion, man. John Cena versus Booker T, I mean, it was okay. I feel like Booker T was kind of carrying the match, in my honest opinion. Undertaker versus JBL was all right. Eugene versus Triple H was also a really good matchup. But Randy Orton versus Chris Benoit was really good, too. And this was also when Randy Orton became the first ever, well, not the first ever, but the youngest World Heavyweight Champion of all time when he beat Benoit on SummerSlam 2004. And we all know what kind of career Randy Orton's had, man. Randy Orton has had a fantastic career. He's still wrestling now. And he's putting on a fantastic, having a fantastic career, man. I think he's having more fun now in his career than he ever has. But this was the beginning of many championship runs that Randy Orton was going to go on and put on fantastic matches for the fans. And he's still doing that till this day. So Randy Orton is an absolute legend in his own right. But if I had to give SummerSlam a rating, or SummerSlam 2004 a rating from 1 out of 10, I'm going to have to give it a rating, man, of a solid, probably 5.5 at best. Like I said, man, it wasn't the worst SummerSlam, but it definitely was not the best, just not even by a long shot. There was a lot of good SummerSlams out there that were really, really good. I feel like this one really wasn't up there with the rest of those SummerSlams for me, in my honest opinion. But all in all, I'm going to have to give SummerSlam 2004 a solid 5, maybe 5.5 at best. But this is my review of SummerSlam 2004. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.